Hello and welcome to this video series on Drupal. Now in this video we're going to be talking about taxonomy. Now of all the learning I've done on Drupal, taxonomy is probably the most confusing. Not the most difficult, just confusing, because for some reason I think somebody had the word of the day calendar on their desk when they were working on this particular part of Drupal. God bless them, because for one, taxonomy in versions prior to 6 were known as categories. What's wrong with leaving it alone as categories? Because for one, the name, anything that has the letters TAX involved can't be good, but I digress. In Drupal, taxonomy is actually a good thing. Really, categories are just fine, and they're basically the same thing because it's a way in which you organize the content on your site. Rather than just having them all floating around there, well, this is a way in which you can organize the bits of content referring to this group or that group. You can kind of keep them in their individual groups. For example, let's say for example you have articles all over your website on cars, and some of those articles are referring to Toyota minivans. I don't even know if there is such a thing, or Toyota coupes, or Toyota trucks. Other articles might be about Chevrolet race cars or Chevy Vegas, heaven forbid. And actually, those are pretty cool cars. So again, you've got these articles scattered all over the place, and what taxonomy does is it helps categorize these. So, for example, one taxonomy would be cars. Another taxonomy might be trucks. And when talking about taxonomy, we're also going to be talking about terms. Terms are the bits that make up those categories or taxonomy. In other words, under the taxonomy or category cars, you may have Chevrolet, you may have Toyota, you may have Dodge, you may have Ford, you may have racing cars, you may have off-road cars. Again, these are the terms listed under that taxonomy or that category. Now, you're probably also going to come across the word vocabulary. That means pretty much the same thing as category. Again, here comes the confusing part, but try to stay with me. Follow the bouncing ball. Taxonomy, categories, vocabulary. Three different words, but insofar as Drupal is concerned, they're basically the same thing. So if you look at it like that and try not to think too much into it, which it took me the longest amount of time not to do, but once you try to just step back and just not think too much into it, just realize that taxonomy, vocabulary, categories are all three basically the same thing, and that the bits that make up those taxonomies, categories, vocabularies, they're called terms or tags. Then you're doing just fine. You're doing way better than I was in the very beginning. So let's go ahead and jump into this, and again, by me showing you, it'll be easier to understand what the heck I'm talking about when it comes to taxonomy or categories or vocabulary. So let's head on over to administer, and naturally now it's easier to explain what this is since we have a little bit of content already tossed into our website. Prior to having any content created, it would have been much more difficult to show what I'm talking about. So now then, what we want to do is go to content management, come on down here to taxonomy, and again, in versions prior to 6, versions 5, 4, they would be listed as categories. So aside from that, everything else is the same. So now then, currently by default we have the forms up here, and that's only because I believe on the modules we have forms enabled. If we did not, then it wouldn't be showing up just yet. And we're going to get into that in an upcoming video on setting up your forms, but that's then, this is now. So let's go on over here to add vocabulary, which means add category. Why the heck can they just put category in there? Anyway, so now then, this being a site basically on Real Estate 101, what we're going to do is we're going to have two taxonomies or two categories or two vocabularies, if you will. One for residential, one for commercial. So I'm going to go ahead and set those two up real quick, and then we're going to come back and we're going to set up the terms for each of those categories or vocabularies or taxonomies. Remember, vocabulary, taxonomy, category. Three items that are basically the same thing. Now I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call this one residential. And under description, this is optional, but it's a pretty good idea since you're not the only one that's going to be going to your website, hopefully, that you want to give some kind of an idea to your visitors and or members what the heck you're talking about insofar as residential is concerned. So let's go ahead and toss some verbiage in here so we know what we're talking about. Properties you purchase to live in. These are not referring to properties others would live in and they would rent out. Those are commercial properties, which is going to be the next vocabulary name that we create. Now then, help text. Instructions to present to the users when selecting terms. So this is it's optional. I'm going to leave this alone, but if you find the need for it, then by all means jump on it. Now these are the content types you want this taxonomy or this vocabulary to be referring to, and pretty much we're just going to go with forum, topic, and story. Now then, the settings, I'm going to go ahead and check all three, and not that I would normally, but for the purpose of showing you what they will do, that's why I'm doing it. And the weight, I'm going to just leave this at, I want this one to be above the commercial, or for that matter any other type that we come across here. So I'm going to want this one to be a -1 because they're all defaulting as 0. Then just click on save. That's pretty much it. That's how you set these up. You can see right now we got residential. We can edit. Now we can list terms, which right now there are no terms listed, but we'll just go ahead and check it out just because it's there. No terms available. So we will now add term. Of course, you can click on it here, or at the last screen we were on over to the right of list terms, it said add terms. You can do that as well. So let's go ahead and add terms. And here, pretty much the same thing. I'm going to add different types of residential property that I could come across. And let me see, I got a couple of them in here just stored. House would probably be the first one. And put in a little description of house. And then under advanced options, check that out. And right now these are the only ones available because, well, that's the first term that we're creating. Now synonyms meaning the same type of, I mean, I could put down home, dwelling, shelter, you know, something along those lines, but I'm not. And again, the weight would have a bearing on where it falls in the list of other terms. So for the time being, I'll leave that as 0. Actually, no, I'm going to make that a -1 as well. And you just type in the -1 because there's no drop-down list here of available weights. And or you could just leave them all as 0, and then they would just fall in the order in which they were created. So we're going to click on save. And see, it says right here, create a new term, house, for the taxonomy or category or vocabulary named residential. Now I'm going to go through here and I'm going to pause the video for a second. I'm going to add a few more terms in here just so we've got some items to choose from. I've got a couple of them added in here already, and just to show you what they're looking like, come on down here to advanced options, and you can see this is increasing in, well, selections or parent terms or possible parent terms and related terms. And the weight, I've just been kind of playing around with that. Again, you can always come back and edit this later. And now I'm going to add a couple more in here. Then I'm going to go ahead and add another vocabulary to this, and that's going to be commercial. I'll do the same thing with that, so I'll be back in just a sec. Now I went ahead and added commercial to our list of taxonomies or vocabularies or categories, whatever you want to call them. And you can see here the same under type. I did the same thing for commercial as I did for residential. And now I'm going to list, let me just show you this here. These are the terms that are listed under residential currently. And if you want to go back in and edit them, then you can do so by clicking on under the edit under operations, and you can change the order in which they're falling here by going into edit and adjusting the weight number. Remember, the bigger the number, the heavier they are, the further to the bottom they're going to fall. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and add some terms to our commercial vocabulary, and I'll be right back. Now, and I went ahead and finished up adding some terms to commercial, or to our commercial vocabulary, and now we've got also terms for our residential category. And let's go on over to our content that we've already created. You do that by clicking on content. That'll take us to a list of those items. And let's go ahead and, these are stories, so let's go ahead and check out this one here. I want to show you how those three items look, that whether it's tagged, multi, or required. Oh yeah, let's go to edit and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is our article here, or story. Click on edit, and this is what comes up. This is what comes up whenever we have tagged. That means this allows the person that's creating this article, one of your visitors or members, that they can type in their own tag or their own term. They do not have to particularly choose one that you've created, and they can put in their own, and that term is added to that list. All you have to do is just separate it by a comma if they wanted to create additional terms. And you can see here that they can choose from either residential and or commercial. And that's basically the only changes here. Everything else is going to be basically the same. So now this again is what it looks like whenever we make it required, whenever we give them the chance to tag it, and that is the, well, let's just head on over there and I'll show you what I'm talking about. That would be under content management, taxonomy, and we'll just go to this one here under residential because they're both the same. Whenever we come on down here and under the settings, whenever you have this checked, terms are created by the users when submitting posts, not just being able to select what is available. Okay, so whenever we untick this one, I'll leave it ticked for the commercial so you can see what's there. We'll save this, check out our content, go to edit. Now you can see where we have just this box here where we can click on one or the other, of course the generic all others, or under commercial they're able to create their own. Now then let's go back and edit that again. Go to administer, one down to taxonomy, and I'm going to edit the vocabulary under residential. Going down to settings, and let's untick the multi-select. And then head on over to content. Check this guy out again. I should just clicked on edit there. And this one gives you the same items only in a drop-down form. Okay, so now if we put in here where it is not required, that last box we have not unticked, I believe that's going to take this out altogether. So let's go ahead and do that just to show you. Administer, taxonomy. Hopefully you're getting a grip on what taxonomy is and how it can benefit you in organizing your site. Edit vocabulary, and we'll head on down to settings, untick that, we'll save it, head on over to content, and we'll save a step this time by just going over here to edit under operations. And you can see here, since it's not required, actually I don't see any difference there at all. More than likely, if you do not make a selection, that That's probably it, is that if you do not make a selection, you will not get an error message. Whereas if that box required were ticked, then if you did not make a selection or did not type something in here, and you come on down here to save, that you get an error message saying, hey, you got to select a term. That's probably what will happen. So why don't we go ahead and do that just for testing. And save. None are selected, by the way, but it's not required. Commercial field is required. Okay, because remember we didn't do that. So that's cool. That is basically what is involved with taxonomy. Hopefully, again, and of course, to eliminate this, we just type something in here. Anything really. It doesn't even have to be one that was already pre-created, because this is one, as we have noted, that our users can create, and it will be added to that list. So again, hopefully you've learned something with this video on taxonomy. The fact that taxonomy, categories, and vocabulary are all three pretty much the same thing, and that you can break those categories down further by adding terms. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I was able to demystify what taxonomy really is. Thank you again, folks. Have a great day.